The latest on developments in Yemen. All times local 9:40 p.m. A New York-based relief group says a promised easing of access restrictions to Yemen by a Saudiled military coalition is no cause for celebration. The coalition said on Wednesday that it would reopen the war-torn country's main airport and a key Red Sea port to humanitarian traffic on Thursday. The announcement came after the coalition tightened a blockade November 6 in response to a missile fired toward the Saudi capital by Shiite rebels in Yemen. The International Rescue Committee says a partial reopening of ports will ease the flow of humanitarian aid, but will still leave the population of Yemen in a worse situation than they were 2 weeks ago before the blockade started. The committee says that commercial shipments of food and fuel must resume immediately, ___9:05 p.m. The United Nations says that if Saudi Arabia reopens the airport in Yemen's capital, Sana'a, and its Red Sea ports of Hodeida and Salef as the kingdom has indicated it would do, it will be a very welcome and critically important development. UN Deputy Spokesman Farhan Haq told reporters at UN headquarters in New York that senior UN humanitarian and political officials received information from their Saudi counterparts on Wednesday, indicating a willingness to open the airport and ports over the next day. Haq said the UN is monitoring these developments and we're trying to see whether that actually takes place on the ground. He also said the world body has made clear the tremendous amount of needs on the ground. He also says we're ready to help if the ports are opened. The Saudiled coalition fighting Shiite Houthi rebels shut down all land, sea and air access to Yemen earlier this month after the rebels fired a missile that targeted Riyadh, __6:40 p.m. The UN humanitarian chief in Yemen says the closure of the country's main airport and 2 seaports by a Saudiled coalition has threatened gains made in containing cholera and the risk of famine in the war-torn country. Jamie McGoldrick spoke to the Associated Press on Wednesday. His comments came shortly before the Saudiled military coalition fighting Shiite rebels in Yemen announced it would reopen Sana'a Airport and the port of Hodeida on Thursday for urgent humanitarian aid and UN aircraft. The coalition imposed a blockade November 6 after rebels fired a missile at the Saudi capital. McGoldrick says 7 million of Yemen's 27 million people rely on food aid. He says that at a time of famine and a time of cholera, it's very important to keep all aid channels open, __5:40 p.m. The Saudiled military coalition fighting Shiite rebels in Yemen has announced it will reopen the war-torn country's main international airport in the capital of Sana'a and a vital Red Sea port to give access to humanitarian aid. Wednesday's announcement says the Sana'a airport and the port of Hodeida will reopen, starting from Thursday. It's been over 2 weeks since the Saudiled coalition imposed the closure of all sea, air, and land ports in the Arab world's poorest country, in response to a missile assault by the Shiite rebels that targeted the Saudi capital, Riyadh. The missile was struck down but it was the farthest a projectile by the rebels, also known as Houthis, had penetrated into the kingdom. The coalition SYS, the United Nations and international relief groups have demanded the coalition allow access to hubs in Yemen so that humanitarian aid can reach those that desperately need it. Aid groups have also warned of worsening conditions for millions of Yemenis who depend on the aid, __10:20 a.m. A New York-based relief group has urged an end to the continuing blockade that serves as a collective punishment of Yemenis and risks driving 500 children into malnutrition every week. The International Rescue Committee on Wednesday said the closure of Yemeni ports by the Saudiled coalition as part of its fight against Houthi rebels creates humanitarian misery for millions of Yemenis. The coalition announced that it's lifting the blockade after initially tightening it following a Houthi missile attack. Sanctions and inspections should not be used as weapons of war, the group said in a statement. The IRC condemned the international community, saying its silence is a disgrace and is enabling what could be collective punishment. Each week, the group said, 500 children join hundreds of thousands suffering from malnutrition.